welcome to Unapologetics. I am Brently, and today we have the second half of a conversation that I had with Elliot, secular Rarity, from the ACA shows. You've probably seen him from, the Atheist Experience. He's on Talk Heathen. He's all over the place. And this is the second part of that conversation. We went through an article and we were reading this blog by this woman that was talking about how terrible it is if you're a Christian to put your kids in public school. So the whole thing is basically telling people to homeschool their children. And as someone who was homeschooled, I can tell you that's a terrible fucking idea. But I don't want to give any more time. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and just go back one episode so you can catch the entire conversation. That way you get all the context, because you kind of need all of that in order to really follow along with this one, because it can be a bit complicated, and I encourage you to do that. And if you're new to the channel, thanks and welcome. But without further ado, here is part 2 of my conversation with Elliot about how terrible the public school system is if you're a Christian. So, where your life isn't really your own. You're just a vehicle for your parents to feel like they did a good job.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. I know a guy, great dude, who literally was told by his parents from like the age of 5, the whole family rests on your shoulders. We had you as a child specifically so that you would become very well educated and very successful financially and be able to lift the entire family out of the circumstances that we're currently in. That they said that to him. And
Wow.
And how do you live your fucking life like that? Knowing full and well that your life is already spoken for. No matter what you desire, at the end of the day, your choices are completely meaningless because other people have already decided for you. Like, yeah, it's just, now, thankfully he's, in a better place now for sure. Not in that situation, but still, it's
goodness.
Yeah, that type of shit is just, honestly, it's gross. It's scary, and it's just baffling that those are the people, these types of individuals who want this for their children and tell other people this is how you need to raise your child. These are the people that call grooming just the simple acknowledgement that some teachers in the United States are homosexual. That's grooming.
Yeah.
That's grooming. But literally mapping out your child's life for them, forcing them to enact things physically and believe things, that's fine. That's just parenting.
Right. That's why I get so pissed off, because I was homeschooled, so like and when people are like, oh, they're trying to indoctrinate our kids in public schools, I want to just fucking slap them, because I'm like, you don't have the slightest fucking idea what indoctrination is.
Right.
It's when you're put in a bubble, not allowed to look out or even ask any fucking questions. Right. You're told everything to think, and you're limiting the scope of information. That's the main thing. You're limiting the information that they have access to. Granting them access to more information, no possible way that could be fucking indoctrination.
Right.
No possible way.
Right.
It just doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
No, I know. I get it. I get in the same boat. Trust me. Right. And we're still only like halfway through this, and we're already over the hour. So
know, right?
Let's just keep going.
We got it. Through it. Yeah, we'll cruise through real quick here, and then we'll. All right. So third, notice that Christ says that salt can lose its saltiness and become good for nothing. An ineffective witness. Just real quick, I want to say, does salt do that? Is that a thing that salt does?
I think eventually salt can go bad. Okay. But I think it takes a while. I don't think it's I think if you just poured out a thing of salt on your counter today when we got off of this stream, I think you could probably still use that salt for a couple of weeks. I don't think, you know, you may not
Decades, I
want
don't.
to. Yeah, you may be like, why would I want to? But also, again, like I'll just go buy like a pound of salt for like 89 cents. Like it's just nothing these
Right.
days. So
Okay,
I
so
just
I just didn't know if it could go bad, but I guess that's right. They put the rice in it and stuff. So maybe I'm
yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think it's not like a quick process, and it's just really a bad analogy all the way around. It's
Yeah,
honestly
okay.
the problem.
I
Yeah.
was gonna
Yeah.
say because that's just
We're trying to bring logic into this, Brent, and it's
I
just I know.
I don't know why I try. You know, it's stupid. Stupid. Uh, have you ever asked yourself how salt loses its saltiness? Well, just now, yeah. But salt loses its saltiness by absorbing impurities or being immersed in humidity, so as to evaporate. I'm pretty sure I know it does not evaporate. That's the moisture evaporates, and then it stays stuck to whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
all right. Salt loses its saltiness when okay. Public school is a prime environment for absorbing impurities and being over immersed in the humid culture of the world. And unseasoned, immature children are particularly susceptible to those impurities and that immersion. God, the
Okay.
unseasoned thing, you know, she was just like,
Yeah, I know. I
nailed
know
it.
she was really proud of herself.
So
And
far.
again, like I'm not, folks, please. I'm not an expert. Don't just take what I say, you know. But let me just a little piece of advice. Again, not the most important thing here, but it is just worth pointing out. There's something called overextending the metaphor. Okay. You may have heard this in the sense of beating a dead horse. So very quickly, she killed this fucking horse and took the entire rest of that paragraph to just mercilessly beat the living shit out of this dead horse. It is dumb, okay? Like what you should do when providing people with a metaphor, right? Is don't speak down to them like this. That's what she's doing here by continuing to push this thing and just like going even further with talking about the salt in our children, even further talking about the impurities and the immersion of public, even further by saying unseasoned in quotes. She put it in fucking quotes. We know that the children aren't actually seasoned. We know you're not fucking putting them in a goddamn plastic bag with brine overnight. We know that. We're not stupid. Don't talk to us like we're stupid. It makes your metaphor shit. It makes your writing bad. It is difficult to get through because you spend a whole paragraph explaining the joke to us. Like we get the joke. The chicken didn't cross the road. Like we understand. We get it. You don't have to be like, okay, so look, so like there's two sides to a street and a chicken is a bird.
So sometimes things need to get from one side of the street to the other because whatever they're trying to get to is on the opposite side of the street. And so because of that whole situation, they have to then cross the street.
Now it's funny. Thank you.
Okay,
Now
yeah, no.
I get it. I didn't understand it before. I thought you were genuinely saying your children go to school with salt sprinkled on them.
Right. Like, that's
Fuck
right.
yeah.
I learned this at Safety Village when I was like 12 years old. Okay. Got it.
You just sprinkle all the salt to protect you. Oh god. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's get through this next one. Okay.
I know.
Shouldn't
difficult.
we want to train our children to face the real world? Maybe you feel like Christian school or homeschool is a bubble of unreality. Yep. But
Exactly.
so is public school. The real world isn't anything like public school. Where in the real world are people congregated in groups of people only their own age? Where in the real world will they face such an overbalance of peer-related temptations? Surely they will face temptations as adults, but generally those temptations will not be so concentrated. And more to the point, adults have the maturity to handle them. How? You just automatically get that once you turn a certain age? We can train our children in the issues of the real sinful world without sending them into it. Is God with our children? If they're Christians, to help them face temptations? Of course. But in sending our children to public schools, we must know that we're casting them into a myriad of temptations that they could be shielded from in their immaturity, and some that they very likely wouldn't ever have to face otherwise. So here's a great way to get people prepared for problems in the world. Just don't ever let them be around them. Just don't ever let anybody be aware of any of the bad things. Hey, did you guys know that a military coup happened a couple of years ago in Myanmar, and they just literally started killing people in the streets? They've done it again recently, just planes and guns and bombs, just indiscriminately killing thousands of people. You want to know the best way to fix that? Not fucking talk about it, right? Like, just avoid the situation. Just pretend that it's not happening and just be like, oh, isn't that bad? Like, well, let's stay away from that.
Yeah.
Fucking nonsense. Like, this is why adults grow up to be incapable of dealing with situations, is
Right.
because people are actively attempting to avoid ever experiencing any difficult situations in a safe place, right? This is what happens. And so these individuals grow up thinking that, oh shit, the world is just designed for me and made for me, and I get everything I fucking want. So they pitch a fucking hissy fit when they can't do their TikTok video in the middle of traffic, stopping thousands of people driving. Like,
Yeah.
it's just crazy. It's
Well,
just crazy.
and also when you bubble a kid in like this, and I know that I definitely, I don't want to say, I don't want to say that this is the full reason for everything that I went through as far as like drug use and stuff like that growing up, but you cause your child to be afraid of the world because they're not familiar with it.
Yes.
A classroom is not a scary thing. It's just not. And I've been terrified to ever go to college because I'd never been in a classroom before. And the whole thing just seems overwhelming and scary, you know?
Right.
And drug use is a really good way to just like feel like it doesn't actually do anything, but it makes you feel like you're coping better, right? Which
Right.
is very similar to religion, actually. Because again, it does nothing, but it makes you feel like you're doing something.
Exactly.
Like,
because this just flippant statement of adults have the maturity to handle stuff, like, that is just so, I mean, talk about not understanding the human condition at all. That
Right.
if anybody in their fucking life believes that they just woke up one day and were just mature and just able to handle shit, like, you go ahead and bottle your pill or write your damn self-help book and go start touting this fucking method. Like, because it's just not real. That's just not how things happen. And if we just continue to believe that someday we'll just all magically reach maturity or something, like it's just some point in life, like, oh man, you hit 50, hey, congratulations, half a century, man, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, did you get maturity? It's like, oh yeah, just like last week, man, it was crazy. You know,
I can do my taxes now. And
Yeah,
it's crazy.
my buddy didn't get it till like 2 weeks after his birthday, so I was surprised. It was great.
Some people
What?
sets in a little bit later, you know, it takes them.
It's just fucking stupid.
And for me, honestly, dude, it took me, like, I feel like I was completely immature like my whole life because it took me like getting my brain out of that brain cage of religion and these like crazy beliefs that were stifling my curiosity and
Right.
me even trying to figure anything out because I was like, I already know everything. Jesus,
Right.
you know, and that is, you know, that fucking stifles you, man. It keeps you stuck and it keeps you
Absolutely.
immature. It's
That is
literally the opposite of what she's saying.
100% right there, man. 100%. The number one way to remain immature, the number one way to ensure that you never make progress is to segregate yourself where you are actively avoiding other information, other experiences in life, opening and broadening your horizons. That is the number one way to achieve the exact opposite of what she is saying they should achieve. And she's advocating for this method. And that's the problem. That's what is always so frustrating. It's like, this isn't a problem on me. This is a problem on you. I want maturity, and I've got a method to actually get children to that place, because we look at the peer-reviewed studies of the individuals that have been in this field for hundreds of years, and we base our decisions on that. On the other hand, you Miss Christian nationalist blog writer, you would like to do the exact opposite. So
what they do is they just pretend that they're right. And so when you think the information is just pretend, like stamping your feet and deciding that you're right about something, sure, everything's equal.
Yep.
You know, because she probably just thinks that the teachers just happen to just be deciding that things are true, you know, and that's it. And that's how you decide facts, is just who stamps their feet the hardest.
Yeah. I mean, basically, that's how we figured out the age of the earth. We just kind of spun around a few times and we're like, 14 something billion. Fuck it.
And that's my favorite number. So
that seems right.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. 5 is a cool number, but it's not cool enough, you know, but like 15 feels too round. So like, let's just cut it off a little bit. Like,
sounds unrealistic when you get into 15.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Be off.
Yeah.
Should be like 14, 7, 66.
Yeah, right. 14 point something, like 6 or 8 or 865. Or I don't know, whatever.
Something random sounding, you know?
It's just, oh my God. Okay, let's see. Public school is an intensified battlefield, not the real world. If Christian school or homeschool is a bubble of protection and immersion in Christian values, public school is a bubble of immersion in secular values and intensified temptations. It's so stupid.
Good God.
Okay. If your child is attending public school, you may be actively teaching your child to swim against the culture, but realize that you've put him not into the lap pool, but into the ocean with a strong riptide. 1,000 arms of current are trying to pull him under. That's just a really bad.
Why are you bringing arms into it, man?
You
can just
say, really not good at, she's not good at.
It's like 1,000 tentacles of the current. Like,
and it's just me being like really shitty about it, but it is frustrating because it's like, it's hard to read because it's like your point is muddled because you're trying to like make it seem smarter than it really is. Like it's, and you don't have to do that. You look like an asshole when you do that, you know, when you try to sit there and anyway, okay. I keep moving forward.
I know.
God, it's frustrating.
I get it, man.
Or how many unbelieving students are in your child's school? How many unbelieving teachers? That many people are potentially trying to pull your child under. That doesn't mean I'm saying that all those teachers or students are as bad as they could be. Okay. But see my point below. At the end of the day, all unbelievers hate God in their hearts and have rejected the capital T truth.
What?
You just have to be such an arrogant asshole to live your life like that. Like, and I mean this, as frustrated as I get, you know, and as you know, as hard as I'll criticize some of these things, I genuinely do feel bad, because there's no way that a human being could walk around thinking stuff like that and genuinely be in a place of peace and happiness. Because you constantly have to be so defensive and defensive and immature and self-centered and just uninterested in any positive outcomes that don't adhere to your belief. And that just must be hell. That just must be hell to constantly be in that state of existence. And so that's why I do this stuff, is because I don't want people to live in a place where they are actively hurting themselves. If you walked into a room and you saw your best friend constantly putting their fucking hand on a hot stove, you would try to say to them, hey, don't do that. Here are reasons not to do that. Like, you're hurting yourself. Like, you want to help them. And genuinely, I feel that people walking around with that thought in their head, that all unbelievers just hate God in their hearts and they've rejected the truth of the world. Like, it just, you just must be in so much pain. all the fucking time.
Yeah,
And
because it's like if you went to that person who's burning their hand and trying to explain to them why they shouldn't do that. You're like, what, do you think you're better than me? You think you're better?
you're
Huh? I don't have to
persecuting
listen
me.
to you. You're persecuting me. Dude,
Oh,
like, I'm just going to. The sad thing is they probably think that whole thing's reversed.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
They're like,
For
they're
sure.
burning themselves by not having my exact doctrine
I
of
know.
my exact religion.
I know. And it's nonsense because it's like it's literally it's two people standing in front of a stove and one of them is actively burning their hand and the other person is like, "Look, here's your burnt hand." And they're like, "No, no, that's
That's
not
not
you're
burn.
the one who's burning your hand.
It's just a
I'm
flesh wound.
I'm burning I'm burning my hand holding your smoldering fucking arm right now, but other than that, no." Like,
Yeah. This actually feels better.
yeah,
You should try it.
you
You
should
should do
try
this.
it. You should pour some salt and light on it. That'll make it.
Get your hand over here. Let's go. Oh God, that's crazy. Oh, see, so the question is, like, haven't Christians been sending their children to public schools for hundreds or thousands?
I
Okay, I
think
don't know
public
about the
education
thousands.
has been, yeah, I don't, yeah. I just feel confident about that timeline being wrong, but whatever.
Hundreds, yeah, but and really only like two or three.
Right.
But okay, well, first of all, this isn't really a biblical reason to make a decision. What the fuck? That just okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yup.
All right. I mean, all right.
She's technically right about that.
Yeah. I just want to say that shit cuts both ways. That's all I'm saying. So don't be coming at me with, "Oh, well, people have been believing in Jesus Christ for 2,000 years, secular rarity, blah, blah, blah." Like, no, it's not a biblical fucking reason. So don't be telling me that shit anymore. Okay,
The Bible says nothing about how long people have believed in stuff
that's right.
and having any bearing on the argument.
I'm just saying.
Oh God, it's so funny.
You want to play that card? I'll play that card. Stupid.
But to answer that question, not really. No. In general, Christians have always been educated by Christians until the 1800s, whether that be parents, private tutors, pastors, or church members. If by public school you mean the schools of the Massachusetts Bay Colony of the 1600s, for example, those were public schools only in that they were education for all. And Massachusetts Bay Colony was a theocracy, so the government was run by the churches, and so were the schools. This was true all over Europe until the 1800s, where education was run by churches and teachers were heavily vetted for their firmness in the faith.
I think she's a little bit off on that timeline.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I'm not 100% on it, so I'm not gonna. I mean, the stuff that she says next here about like Horace Mann and stuff, yeah, I know some of that, but like, I don't think all the way up until the 1800s, every public school throughout Europe was Christian. A lot of the public schools in the United States at that time were, because the United States really hadn't been founded. And yeah, like a lot of the various colonies were theocracies. They were just straight up theocracies, and they were horrible.
Yeah, they were the Puritans, for
Yes.
Christ. They were just killing people because they just all decided people were fucking witches.
Yes, it was literally a very, very bad time that if anybody is advocating for going back to, you should remind them that that concept is 100% anti-American. That is not what the founding fathers wanted or stood for. You arguing to protect this nation and then arguing to change it to a theocracy, those ideas are exclusively contradictory.
Yes.
They don't work. They don't work. They don't fucking work.
So, all right, yeah, here, I'll try to like blast through the last.
I know it's my fault on some of it. But I got some time,
we're not.
man.
Yeah, we're not
super
too far.
We'll get through it before the next turn of the hour.
Okay, cool. All right, let's see here. So, oh yeah, we're right here. So, public education as we know it in America, didn't exist until the 1870s when Horace Mann, father of the American public school system, and the U.S. congressman led the United States into a system of free government-led education. The difference between his public schools and that of the Puritans, for instance, cannot be overstated. For instance, one of one of his primary goals in creating government common public schools was to eradicate Calvinism and Catholicism from the growing American populace. Mann, who had rejected his Calvinist upbringing, believed that education could save American democracy, but only if doctrine was removed from the academic subjects. He wanted Americans to hold everything in common, and the government got to decide what those common elements were.
Yeah, so I just want to say the belief that education could save American democracy, but only if doctrine was removed from the academic subjects, that I don't say this often, but that shit is based. I am 100% in support of that. 100% in support of that. Yes, education can save not only democracy in the US, but democracy worldwide, but also just people. Like education will save people. That's why I am such a huge proponent for it. Like absolutely 100%, as long as doctrine is not a part of it. So
Yeah.
Super with you there, Mr. Man.
Yeah, Mr. Man. Look here, Mr. Man. We see this philosophy today in the extreme when the government is further from a Judeo-Christian worldview, and common elements include children being taught a common view of LGBTQ ideology, common CRT ideology, etc. This situation is not improving. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. Wow.
I'm going to hold my comment. I'm going to hold my comment till these last few sentences, and then I'll pick up the next section. But oh boy, do I have something about that.
Right? Oh, it's so gross. Like, so anyway, does anyone really believe that public school is the same as it was 150 years ago, 50 years ago, 5 years ago even?
It's such a stupid. Again, I know this is totally not the point of this, but this person is bad at writing. They're just bad at writing. That's how she ends the section. That's how she ends this section with 3 fucking rhetorical questions that don't provide anything. She literally could have just left it as, does anyone believe public school is the same as it was 150 years ago? But that is such a weak way to end this section. Like that is just it's
what does that have to do? Okay,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's just she shoehorns it in here because she believes that asking these questions like this right here is effective. Like it's like getting her point across, but it's not. It is preaching to the choir and it is talking down to the audience. It is just frustrating. She's a bad fucking writer, and she probably gets that from reading this shitty written Bible because it's just horrible. It's just bad writers.
Yeah, and other articles like these.
And other articles like this, exactly. Okay, now my quick little rant. No, I'll take these next 2 sections because they're pretty quick. But common view of LGBTQ ideology. Let's talk about that. And let's talk about common CRT ideology, etc. By the way, she uses 2 points to make her point, which just, again, totally picky and pedantic on my part, but it's a good idea as an author when trying to push for some particular argument. 3 points. It has a nice flow to it. There's the rule of 3 in comedy. It's just something that goes across lots of different media. Okay, just pointing that out. So saying common view of LGBTQ, common view of CRT, etc., kind of makes it look like you don't have any more fucking points. Whereas like, when you have 3 and then etc., it's like, okay, this person is like actually trying to like really give us, and they don't have enough time to give us all the arguments, but they're gonna later. She doesn't, but whatever. Anyway, I could be wrong on this. Okay. But when it comes to things like the right for individuals to marry who they love, regardless of sex or gender, the right for an individual to receive gender affirming medical care, this isn't so much an ideology as it is literally advocating for just the very, very lowest of levels of legal protection. Right. Am I wrong on that? I just have to understand, because I don't view an ideology as somebody simply advocating for the right not to be murdered. And I could be wrong. Maybe I don't fucking understand the English language. Maybe I just genuinely do not know what an ideology is. But I could have sworn that it was more than just a human being saying, please don't put me in jail for who I am and who I love. I could have fucking sworn. So that was the thing that jumped out at me. And again, like CRT ideology, I seriously, I really, I challenge anyone. I challenge fucking anyone to disagree with this statement, which is many places around the world, but specifically in the United States, there has been a systemic history of actively making racist policies so as to specifically negatively target a group of people based on nothing more than immutable characteristics about them. That historic, systemic problems are things that have shaped the world we live in today. I seriously challenge anybody. I challenge fucking anybody to disagree with that. Let me go ahead and give you the history of South Africa. Are you familiar with why Pakistan and India split? Do you know anything about the creation of Australia as a nation? And that's just scratching the surface. There's like, what, 200 some odd different fucking countries in the world. Name a place, you asshole. Name a place where that statement isn't true. It's literally everywhere. That is so basic. It would be as if somebody came up to you and said, I just have a problem with all this blue sky ideology. What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? It's
but
just like right there.
But people, well, they're talking about it though, and I don't like that. They're teaching the kids.
Oh my God. It's just so, it's just ridiculous. And this is what they like to do, is this far-right Christian nationalist, they are the ones with an ideology. They are the ones with an agenda. They are the ones interested in passing laws that negatively target people. They're the ones interested in that. And what they do is they gin up all this support by throwing out these things, the LGBTQ ideology. What's the ideology? What's the big agenda here? What the fuck are you talking about? And where is your evidence to support that? Like, and they don't have it, and they won't engage in that conversation because they know they don't have it. And they know that by not providing it, and instead just speaking in these vague general terms with these scary buzzwords, they know that they can achieve more successes like they have taken over the Supreme Court and the federal judiciary, putting laws into place, again, that are actively going to cause people to be in jail or die. Like, they're the ones that are doing that. And a great way to get your side to continue doing that, especially when the other side isn't fighting you in that manner, is to just constantly point to the other side and go, look what they're doing. Look what they're so bad. They're so bad. Look how bad they are. Look how bad they are. And every time you do that, you can take another step, because you now have this justification. You now have this platform to stand on. Whereas in reality, you're just the aggressor the entire time.
Right.
So yeah.
It's complete projection. And it's one of those things where if they say it first, then you can't say it about them. That's how they think. Oh no, I already said that about you though. So you're clearly just making this up. It was like the Trump's like entire like
Yes.
tactic. He just said everything about everybody else that he was doing. So you can be like, I said that you guys were doing that. That's the only reason you're saying I'm doing it now.
Right.
What are you guys, 11?
It is classic. It is classic bait and switch. It is classic distraction because you know you're in the wrong. It is, again, there so many of these people at this point are not just passive actors in this. They knowingly are presenting false information. And it's like the people like Kent Hovind and stuff, right? At this point in time, it is not fair anymore to say, oh, maybe he's just mistaken. Maybe he just sincerely believes and has never been privy to information that contradicts him. It's demonstrably false at this point, right? People like Marjorie Taylor Greene, people like Boebert and Trump, and all of the other horrible people that we can name, Alex Jones, the My Pillow guy, all of these terrible people, okay? They know what they're doing. Tucker Carlson was just part of an almost $800 million lawsuit that his side settled because they knew explicitly that what they were doing was pushing false information that they did not believe. We have that on record. It is on record that at the time they chose, nobody coerced them, nobody asked them. On their own, they stood up and said, I do not believe this. It is bullshit. And still continued to peddle the information. We know that. That is the truth. And what you do in that situation is you point to the other side and you talk about all the bad things that the other side is doing, because that's how you can continue to spout the stuff that you know is untrue. You are lying because you know for a fact it is not correct and you don't believe it. You know it's not true and you don't believe it.
Yeah.
And so that's why they do shit like this.
Yeah. And they'll be like, well, but MSNBC said that Joe Rogan was taking horse paste. And that's technically it's not horse paste.
Like, and you get one side where an organization gets stuff wrong, but corrects it, admits to getting stuff wrong. And another side where an organization gets stuff wrong and refuses in any way, shape, or form to admit that. And you have people out there who look at the first organization and go, well, that's the worst organization. They got stuff wrong and they said that they got stuff wrong. So clearly they got stuff wrong.
So they're a liar. Like, yeah.
They're a liar. And it's like, again, I just try to make this as neutral as possible. Try to take this situation out of these hot button issues. You wouldn't accept that in any other fucking capacity. You would never accept that. If you're hanging out with buddies at your local bar and you guys are playing darts or something, and there's this one guy who's like, nah, man, like I never cheated. And it's like, no, Bill, we know you cheated. We watched you on camera. Right. And you've got this other guy who's like, man, hey, I cheated. I'm sorry. No worries. We'll just take the points off the board and just keep playing. Who are you going to play with?
Exactly.
You just, and that's what's so frustrating is these types of thought processes, these types of arguments don't even work for them in every other scenario of their lives. And yet they put a bubble around this aspect of life and they say, nope, it always works here. This is when I'm going to use this, but I refuse to use it personally for myself in any other situation. That shows you that your method is fucked. That's what that shows you.
You're data mining yourself. You're trying to convince yourself of a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And that should be something that every single one of us, religious or not, pay attention to. And if we find ourselves going, I only use this methodology in this particular topic and nowhere else in my life, reevaluate your methodology. So we are at what is an unbeliever, folks. Okay. Jesus Christ. It's a very short section, so I'm just going to go ahead and disappoint everybody. She doesn't really answer. So even the most kind-hearted, unbelieving teacher, even one who is politically conservative, has rejected the authority of God, has turned his or her back on the sovereign ruler of the universe and his divine plan for human history. Can that person disciple your child toward Christ's likeness, i.e., educate? So, she used i.e. wrong, but
I was gonna say,
okay.
it's supposed to be like an example of anyway.
Right. Right. So that she didn't do that right. Again, not the most important point. Also, again, not the most important point. But if you are writing an article or blog or just anything in general in which you're trying to get your point across to other people for any fucking reason whatsoever, it's a good idea if you start out a whole section, if you purposefully decide to section off a piece of your information with a question, it's a great idea to answer that question. Because otherwise, you look like a jackass that doesn't know what you're doing. That doesn't know what you're doing. Like if Brent and I started this whole podcast out with, what is economics? And then refuse to ever at any point give you a definition, you should rightfully stop listening, okay? Because we're assholes. We're assholes because we didn't answer the question we chose to ask. Nobody made us ask this question to you. Nobody put this thought into your head or anything. The reader did not say, oh my goodness, I really hope that she describes what an unbeliever is because that is my big question. Nope. You chose to do this and you failed.
Yeah. Just answer it.
Again, it's not.
It's in bold.
I know. And it's not, again, I know that is like super picky and it's like, oh, Elliot, that doesn't really have anything to do with. And it's like, yeah, I understand. I'm seriously in the boat of just trying to, just wanting for everyone to be better in everything all the time. I just want the world to be better. And when I see somebody who is just actively doing a bad job in some very, very minor things like this that are really super easy, I just want to help. And it's like, hey, if you put these grocery items in a bag of some kind, you can actually move them easier with less damage. And it's like, no, I prefer to carry my carton of eggs on my head. And it's like, all right, fine. I mean, you do what
it's good
you
for
want.
my posture.
It's good. It helps my spine. It's like, well, it doesn't. And when your eggs break, I'm sorry. So
that's it.
Let's see if she will answer this next fucking question. So who and what educates at school? Is it just the textbooks and the teacher's lecture material? No. The common practices or liturgies of the students and the school, the character of companions, the talk in the hallways and lunchroom, school culture, the example of the teachers, and other implicit education happens every single day. I genuinely wonder if she thinks that's also true for homeschooling, because I bet you she would not make that connection, that the way you act in front of your child as a parent also is doing this, and the people that you bring them in front of. I don't think she would recognize that, because I think she would find that if she recognized that, there's potentially more problems with the home stuff. Anyway, while certainly parents can prepare their children for these things and shore up their children's faith, children will be educated by the hidden curriculum. Ooh. Even without their knowledge or explicit participation. A child would have to be hyper vigilant to be aware of this enough to combat it. And I contend that especially young children will almost certainly not be aware enough or strong enough to avoid being educated by the hidden curriculum. Again, I just think it would be really interesting to know if she felt that this exists in homeschooling as well. Because if she doesn't acknowledge that, I honestly think it's very telling, because it's like, hey, okay. So again, who's the groomer here? Who's
Yeah.
doing the indoctrinating? If she does recognize it, then I genuinely love to know how she deals with that herself. I'd love to know what she does, because I think if she says the second answer of recognizing that that sword cuts both ways, I think she would just then start telling on herself about how she's essentially abusing her children.
Right.
Because if you say, hey, yes, I recognize that also homeschooling, there can still be this hidden curriculum that I'm kind of laying out here poorly, like this type of thing would still occur. It would just occur in a way that I find good. And it's like, okay, so how would you combat certain bad aspects of that? And I believe that she would probably have to say restricting my child physically and mentally. I believe that that's what she would have to say. She wouldn't use those words, but she would give examples of how she is keeping her child physically away from other people, and possibly even punishing her child in a physical manner so
Oh, I
as to
guarantee it.
enforce that.
Yeah.
Also restricting the child's education and forcing the child to agree with certain viewpoints that she agrees with. So yeah, I think that's what would end up happening. So I just think that's really interesting.
And and another thing real quick, because I don't know if we're just sort of like touching on this concept as well. Um, the one other thing that is, that I've noticed, especially coming out of the homeschool world and everything, another huge problem with this, with like homeschooling in general, and possibly Christian school too, depending upon which one and who's in charge and whatnot. But nobody ever gets to inspect your children. Right. So it makes it's just a breeding ground for abuse of just so many different kinds of abuse.
Yep.
And there's never anybody that's ever outside going, hey, but why do they look like this? Why are they acting in this weird way?
Yep.
Because certain types of abuse cause certain behaviors, and teachers in the public school system are trained to be looking for this, right?
Yep.
And it's not always a black eye. It might just be that they want to hug everybody. They want to touch people, they want to climb on top of adults and stuff, just like things like that is very unusual for a child to do to people that they don't know and stuff. And so it just opens the door for that to just be pervasive just all through. And they never want to act like that is a thing, like, oh no, not my house,
and they refuse any oversight. They actively push against it. Yep.
Right. And then they won't want to, even if the kid goes to them and says, hey, dad or uncle, whatever, they'll get mad at them. Go to your room, stop lying, get out of here. This isn't that, and they got no one else to tell, and it's just really sad and gross.
Yep, it is. It's a very, very disgusting thing. And this is where all of those horrible things start. And again, this isn't just us conjecturing on this. This isn't us just saying, oh, we don't like religion, bro, we're gonna tear it down every way we. No, this is fucking data. This is fucking data. A few months ago, a ring of homeschool, private school, religious school, it was kind of a mashup of all three of those, of Orthodox Jewish individuals, was raided and busted because they were actively abusing dozens of children, actively abusing them in multiple ways. This is something that is pervasive, and it is inherent in the system. It is not just bad actors acting out a good method. No, it is a bad method that, even if enacted by good actors, still leads to this problem. That is the issue. That is why I am so against it. That is why so many of us talk about it. It is inherent in the system itself, a system that is entirely about arbitrary authority from above, a system that is entirely about thought and behavior and information control, a system that shuns transparency. That is what this is. And that type of system will always lead to more negative results like this, period. That's the point. That's why I'm so against it. That's why I fight against this stuff. That's why I rant against this stuff, is because I'm not saying, oh, well, sometimes people use it poorly. No, I'm telling you, you are currently looking at a broken down car with a hockey puck and a fucking lobster in your hand saying, well, if I just do this right, it'll work. No, it won't. And it will lead to more bad consequences always, inherently. There's nothing you can fucking do about it. So
it'll pinch your fingers.
It will. That's what happens. And it will not start your car. I'm sorry. It just won't. And it won't help educate your kids either. It's all the way around bad.
You got to remember the little rubber things that go on
there. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. That is, but it is a serious thing though, too, because it is just, like you said, removing all oversight. And that's really what they're mad about. They're mad that there's any kind of oversight, that anybody but that wasn't completely ran by her religion got to choose like how that oversight should be, because this is a democratic situation where it's like, okay, but we need education for everybody, right? It's a public school. It's not a Christian school. It's not a Muslim school. It's like just a public school. It's for everybody. And because she didn't have her doctrine with the people in charge going, no, we make all the rules and decide what oversight we get and don't get and what the rules are and what the rules aren't, then it's evil. It's a bad, meanwhile, that's actually, she's encouraging people to not put their kids in school, which leads them extremely just not ready for the real world, which opens them up to a lot of drug use and things like that. And on top of the abuse and everything that happens quite frequently. And I'm not talking about, like, it wasn't just one or two, like we were in a whole homeschool group. I have it's anecdotal, but it's like the most anecdotes from a very small sample set. You know what I mean? A lot of anecdotes.
And it's anecdotes that we have cataloged, and we do have data on it. Like, yes, a bunch of these stories add up in the sense of saying we do have an accounting of these things, and these things occur more often in these types of situations. Like, again, this is not a slippery slope. It is me telling you demonstrably, historically, academically speaking, this is the chain of progression. We just know it. It's just the same as talking about the stages in an internal combustion engine. Okay. We know that this happens, then it causes this reaction. And that's the same thing. That's the same thing what we're saying here. This type of ideology, which is what it is, this type of agenda, which is what it is, this type of indoctrination. See, I did the rule of 3 thing there, lady. Just learn from that.
See how that goes?
This leads to these bad things, which leads to more negative consequences. That's what we're saying. It's not a slippery slope. It is a demonstrable chain of progression. And that is a key difference. We're not just theorizing about this. We're talking about the data that we have. And so, this is why this is so problematic. And this is why we have to make sure that the education system in the country is not taken over in this manner. Like, we cannot allow that, because it will lead to more abuse. It will lead to more harm for people just across the board. So,
and just to keep in mind too, just as far as like a long game kind of understanding goes, that like abuse breeds more abuse.
Exactly.
People that are abused usually end up abusing their children, and so on and so forth. And
exactly.
It just keeps going down the line. So like, if we could stop it here, it could be huge for the future.
Yep. Again, back to what Horace was saying about education can save American democracy, but only if doctrine is removed. Yeah.
totally right. Like he is absolutely correct on
it's
that.
amazing how fucking true that is, buddy.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Yeah. So where are we at here?
the last section.
Oh wow, we made it.
We made it. Yeah, at this point, I'm just resolved to get through it. We're getting through it if it takes another 5 hours. We're doing it.
Right. Okay. Oh, we're good. Okay. We're right there at the end. Good. Here we go. All right. Does government have the authority to educate? We have been conditioned for approximately 100 years that professionally trained teachers are better equipped to educate children. Yeah. Okay. All right. The idea that children, sorry.
Just imagine switching out teachers with doctors there, or a mechanic. Again, it's a plumber. Like it's nonsense. When you put this in any other context, you feel like you're fucking going crazy because there's somebody legitimately telling you, yeah, we've just been conditioned to believe that mechanics, professionally trained mechanics, are better equipped to build cars and fix them. And it's like, yeah, we've been, yeah, of course we have. What the fuck?
Conditioned because that's just a true thing.
We've just been conditioned to believe that professionally trained chefs are better equipped to cook food than the asshole on the side of the street. Like, God, I wonder why. Gosh, I wonder why.
It's like, and what a slap in the face to fucking teachers, man.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh my God. Gross. Yes. Okay. So the idea that teachers needed specialized training resulted primarily from the new field of child psychology in the early 1900s, which itself is a result of evolutionary science. Well, I mean, technically, everything that humans do is a result of evolutionary science.
Right. And it's like, and this is somebody who I'm sure does not agree with the understanding of evolution, which means this is a woman that just disagrees with an entire academic field of biology. Okay. Like it's like, it's so frustrating because she's using this child psychology coming out of evolutionary science, which is where we get the understanding that, you know, you have to be fucking educated to like teach children properly. She's trying to use that chain as like a problem. But again, like, take this into another field, okay? And be like, yeah, man, we only believe that doctors need to be educated because of that new emerging field of medicine that started, you know, hundreds of years ago, which itself is actually just a result of having demonstrable proof of things. Like, it's crazy. Like, if you put that in any fucking other context, it's just stupid nonsense that she's babbling, because what she's saying there is like the exact reason that you should trust it. So she's like, yeah, man, all we have to like indicate that teachers need special training is because of this whole child psychology thing. And it's like, wow, what did that come out of? And it's like, well, child psychology came out of like, you know, evolutionary science. And it's like, oh, wow. What is that founded in? And it's like, well, just like the basic principles of epistemology in general and logic and you know, experiencing the world around us and stuff. It's like, wow, that actually sounds really well founded. Actually, are you trying to discredit these fields here? Or are you trying to bolster them? I'm confused. Right. And it's because I'm not confused. It's because she's the one that's confused and is now trying to say, oh, evolutionary science, that just proves all of this is bullshit.
Because she knows that once she says it's based on this, that everybody that is reading her stupid blog will be like, oh, okay, well, that's why we can just like decide to not listen to anything. That
it's a buzzword. It's a buzzword that she can throw out like she did with CRT and LGBTQ. It's a buzzword
and
that
the third one that
out.
She didn't do,
and the third one that she didn't list. Right. So it feels weird when describing it even. Yeah. I'm trying to criticize her and I can't even properly do it because she did such a poor job of explaining her point.
We almost don't need to. She just does it herself.
Right.
But besides the fact that government teacher certification is wholly unnecessary as a qualification.
She got a PhD in Christian education. She got a fucking PhD in Christian education from a Christian college, and she says government teacher certification is wholly unnecessary as a qualification.
Then
Wow.
Why did you get one then, lady?
Wow. That's what I'm saying.
Mine's in Jesus.
Imagine being so fucking oblivious. Imagine that. Like, to just be like, man, Brent, like, your checkered plaid shirt that you're wearing right now is just wholly unnecessary. It's worthless. And it's like, oh, really, SR? Oh, fucking really? The same shirt that you're wearing? Oh my God. It's
goddamn Gap on every corner.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
That's awesome. Oh my God, that's so funny. Okay, so the biblical answer. Wait. Does the government have the authority to teach teachers or offer a program of education to children? The biblical answer is no.
Well, at least she answered the question.
Right?
I'm just proud of her for that. So
boom, right there. One word. No. Yeah. And no. Yes or no question.
Why didn't she do that every other section? Who knows? But
it's 2 letters, man. Like, come on. Governments are not given the authority by God to have any part in education. Fucking what? So as long as you decide that your God gives the governments what they're allowed to do according to your belief system, you could just say that they don't have the authority to do it.
I just don't fucking remember the Bible talking about public education. And maybe that's just on me. Maybe I just didn't read it all the way through, man. But that's just so frustrating when people say stuff like that. Like, they're like, what's the do mechanics have the authority to fix cars? Where the biblical answer is no.
Like, God didn't give them that authority to fix cars.
Where does God mention anything about this? Like, you can say, oh, it's not in there. Like, that's fine. But like, don't just pretend. It's so frustrating. It's like, where in the Bible does it mention like energy drinks? And it doesn't. And that's all I want is an admission that it doesn't explicitly say the fucking thing that you're saying, but the thing that I'm saying it says, it does explicitly say. Give me the explanations afterwards. That's fine. Go, hey, well, it doesn't explicitly say no caffeine, but we kind of make that conclusion based off of this, and we kind of extend that thought process into this thing, or okay.
Joseph Smith said that.
Right. Like, just give me that at least, because otherwise, again, it is just so frustrating because you are just outright disregarding everything around you. And it's like, hey, the sign says stop. Like, it is a stop sign. And it's like, yeah, but see, like, there's all this other explanation and stuff. And it's like, right. That's fine. Like, you can talk to me about like the ordinance that just got passed in your city or whatever. But like, the sign does actually say stop. Right? And no, you're misunderstanding. And it's like, no, I don't think I am. I don't think I am. You can give me the explanation in a second, but at least just be honest from the beginning.
Yeah.
So does the government have the authority to teach teachers or offer a program of education to children? The Bible doesn't say.
It doesn't talk about that.
The Bible doesn't fucking mention it at all. But me extrapolating from these other things that I'm about to lay out here, I get to the answer no. But that's not what she says. She says the Bible says no. The biblical answer is no.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right, though. It's like with the stop sign, but it's like them saying, but God didn't give this stop sign authority to tell you to stop.
Jesus fucking.
You know what? That's like what they're saying.
Yes.
Like, because cars weren't back then, man.
Right.
Like, they didn't have street signs.
Yeah. There's a reason that God didn't talk about that.
Oh, this is so difficult.
I know, and we're almost done. I swear, we're almost done. It's amazing. I told you at the beginning, folks. I told you at the beginning. We got through the first paragraph, and you were like, "This is ridiculous," and I'm like, "It somehow gets worse." Like, you did not believe, but here we are. Proof.
Oh yeah, it just gets stupider and stupider as it goes. So governments are not given the authority by God to have any part in education. Parents are given the authority and primary responsibility in parentheses or in quote or parentheses, yeah, parentheses, by God to educate. Churches are given the authority to educate. Fellow believers are given the authority to educate. C3, that was good. Older women and older men, etc. But no governments. God has given governments only two responsibilities: to protect the innocent and reward the good.
Where?
When
Like,
does the government reward the good?
right. And when does the Bible say this?
And
When
doesn't the
does the
Bible
Bible
say
say this?
the Bible says to obey the government? It says
Yes,
to give Caesar what Caesar's and obey the government.
because God has put them there on purpose.
Yes.
God has ordained the leaders to be the leaders at the time, at the place, because God's fucking in control of everything, and God has higher ways because us as fallible beings can't understand the infallible, can't understand the truly divine. So God's ways are better than ours, and you should just shut the fuck up when you lose public office because that was God's plan. So
Yep.
it doesn't make any sense on any fucking level. But again, I seriously, it's not the most important, but I'm just going to harp on it. Where?
Yeah.
Just anywhere in the Bible. Just any one fucking place where the Bible, from God speaking, is saying, here's government's responsibilities. Just give me any place that it fucking says that. Because otherwise, just admit that what you're doing is extrapolating based on other information. That's okay. I still think you're fucking wrong and it's stupid. But at least you're being honest with me. At least you're being honest.
That's it. Yeah.
She's basically claiming that there's a whole book in the Bible that just like goes into detail about what governments can and can't do from God. And that's just not true. There
Yeah.
is, though, a whole book that lays out fucking laws, some of which talk about how to have slaves, how to beat your slaves. Some of them talk about what foods you can and cannot eat. Some of them talk about how to grow crops and the types of clothing. But nowhere in there in that whole book of rules directly from God does it ever say, oh, and by the way, if a group of people ever decide to get together to govern a particular area or group of people, here are the ways they can and can't do that. Nowhere. Fucking nowhere. I just want that admission.
It's part of this weird like anti-government doctrine that is it's doctrine. It's not a part of Christianity necessarily at all. It's just a doctrine thing.
Exactly.
Doctrine.
It is just something that the church has adopted and are pushing on their congregations.
Yeah, and specific, people within it too, because this isn't all Christians either.
Right.
This is like a very specific, weird, sect where they wear those dresses that just go all the way down to their ankles and puff sleeves. Like they're in fucking. It's like the Handmaid's Tale. But Jesus. All right, so we're here. So okay, God has given governments only two to protect the innocent and reward the good. Fuck it, don't. By involving themselves in education, governments are overstepping their God-given authority. Wait. How do you say they're overstepping and their God-given authority? If their authority is God-given, then they maybe I'm looking into that one too.
No,
again, that just seems contradictory.
Yeah, again, it's not like the most important point, but it is still worth just being like, this doesn't make sense, lady. Like, you just
take out the God-given part.
Yeah.
If they're overstepping it, don't say that it's given to them by God.
Right.
Okay. Right. We must then ask ourselves, can we legitimately delegate our children's education to an institution that does not have God's permission to undertake the task?
It'd be great if she just said no. I know that her answer is no to this question, but it would be great if she just said it.
She'd be like, I think not.
Yeah.
Per se, as it were.
No, but she's got one last little paragraph to really drive this home. So
this is how you know she's got a doctorate, in education.
Oh, God, yeah.
Look, here it is. PhD in Christian education.
Anyway. PhD in teaching other people fucking fairy tales. Imagine that. Imagine that.
Jesus. So, all right, let's do this last little section here. And I do want to bring up this. It is really odd that we're reading the article. You don't need to make sections of the article, I
know.
What is the point? We're reading this same article.
I know. I genuinely hate that. And I see this in like actual, news organizations and stuff too, where they do this stuff. And it's so frustrating though. And the reason that it's frustrating is because all you did was just take a quote out of the article, and that's not helpful. That's not beneficial. I recognize if a good point has been made. Don't treat me like I'm a fucking idiot and go, hey, hang on a second. You're going to want to clap here in just a minute. We're going to actually turn this sign on for you so that when we introduce the actor onto the fucking stage for a live performance that you're supposed to clap. It's like, hey, dipshit. Yeah, I fucking get that. Like, I get that. It's like, oh, you're supposed to laugh at this joke here in a second. And it's like, it wasn't fucking funny. It wasn't a funny joke, so I'm not laughing at it. If I get the joke and it's funny, I'm going to laugh. You don't have to section it off for me. Like, I get, can we legitimately delegate our children's education to an institution that does not have God's permission to undertake the task? I understand the point you're driving at here. You don't have to say it again. It does nothing. It does nothing here for you.
It's right there.
Right. It's literally right above it. It provides no value whatsoever. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. So again,
so dumb. Oh, wow. You do have a print option here. That's really nice. So you can
that's
print
cool.
It.
That's good.
Because I don't think anybody does except for people that read this bullshit.
Right?
Because they probably
this was such a good article. I want to print this thing out, hang it on my wall.
They're using one of those computers that go the whole time.
Oh my gosh.
Is God greater than the public school system? Indeed, he is, as it were, if you will, per se. But that doesn't mean that it's his moral will that children be discipled for any part of their education by governments and unbelievers. The discipleship of our children isn't a secondary issue. It's a sanctification issue. Our children deserve that we think through these things.
Also,
and it's written by Becky Anal. We'll go with that. Yeah.
I just want to say, Becky, seriously, this is undeniably a shitty ending. You objectively did a bad job with closing up this conversation to your readers. Okay. This last little segment here that is cut off by you purposefully quoting your own self in your fucking blog post, okay, in its own section. So you already did that way too close to the end. That doesn't make any fucking sense to begin with. But then you chose to, underneath that, add a little tag. You added just that last little punch to bring it all home. And you chose to do it in a very poor and weak way. This little section at the end, Becky, is supposed to be your final thoughts, your last ditch effort to appeal to your reader and get them onto your side. And you chose to use this. That's poor. You did a shit job, which is why you got a fucking PhD, a worthless PhD, in a fucking nonsense subject, a non-academic subject you chose to spend time out of your fucking life to get better at, to get fucking better at something that has no real world value. That's what you did, and that's why you ended this very crap article with objectively a poor literature ending. Like, this is just bad, okay? Like, let me a quick example, and I swear I'll shut up because I know I've just been making this thing go long.
That's awesome.
There is a man named Mark Twain. Not his actual name, but we're just going to use it. Mark Twain is considered by many different standards, many different academics, one of the tops of the tops when it comes to American literature. His writing encapsulates generations. It perfectly gives you a slice of the culture. It was the catalyst for many an individual after in many fields. Huckleberry Finn is considered to be one of the tops of his writings, one of the pinnacles of beautiful fucking literature. And it is objectively considered one of the worst fucking endings. Mark Twain himself put down Huckleberry Finn for a long time because he could not figure out how to end it, and ultimately gave an ending that he fully believed completely made the entire rest of the book worthless. He hated his ending. Again, objectively, it is considered a bad ending. And all I want to say, Becky, is that is how you ended this article. You did a shit job of ending this article. You should have put this article down for a while and thought harder. And then at the end of this, when you gave this very paltry ending, you should have, in parentheses underneath it, admitted to your readers that you recognize that this ending is kind of lackluster. And while you do feel bad about that, you had been working on this for a long time and had put your thoughts out very well in the rest of the article in such a way that you felt that there wasn't any other good way to wrap up this article. You recognize that you did a shit job at the end, Becky, and you are apologizing to your reader for having to sit through it. That's what you should have done if you were being honest. Again, you did a bad job. You did a bad job throughout the article, just on very basic aspects of it, which again is probably why you were railing against public education, because you don't have any education.
Oh, the irony. Oh my God, the irony.
So
this is exactly why you don't want to, people to learn stuff, because then they can figure out that you suck at this.
Right, because then they'll read your article and say things like, man, it's super weird that she made this whole one section talking about this particular topic, but then didn't really go through the basic level of explanation for laying out what she means by this topic. It's weird. It's almost as if she's not really good at doing this thing, right?
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Just a little bit. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let me try that again. Well, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out and reading this objective trash. It is a pleasure, man. I really do enjoy having you here, and your ability to break things down is and be so patient with it. That's what I really do appreciate. I mean, most people, I feel like, okay, skip through and just can we go? Just go.
Yeah, it is bad. It is bad. I understand that feeling. Trust me. But
yeah, we don't like it. Yeah,
I had a great time, even though this was all crap. I had a great time going through it, and yeah, man. Every time we get to hang out and stuff, it's always fun. So yeah, I'm sure I'll be back.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, and I'm probably going to release this in 2 parts. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. Honestly, it makes sense. Yeah. You'll definitely need to give all the viewers and listeners a break. So yeah.
All right. Well, that's cool. That'll keep the feed going for a couple weeks. So that's all right. And then tomorrow you're gonna be on Left at the Valley, right?
Yeah, I'll be hanging out with you again. So
All right, cool. So everybody check out Left at the Valley, and then give us a quick plug of all the fun things you're doing.
yeah, I do a whole bunch of stuff. But in general, I can often be found on ACA call-in shows. So I was on like Truth Wanted just the other day. I do Talk Heathen mostly. I will be on Atheist Experience in a couple of weeks or something. I'm not positive, so I figured that out. But I also get to hang out weekly over at Atheist Republic. We do Q&As as well as just breaking down various apologists things and talking about terrible things that religions are doing all over the world. But yeah, you can also just find me a bunch of different really cool places. So I just pop up everywhere. So
I see. Holy shit. Well, hey, we got this sign off that we do where I say who we're gonna say fuck off to, and then we try to say fuck off together.
okay.
So what do we say to the haters, discriminators, and masturbator shamers?
Fuck off.